Popcorn. You know the sound. The unmistakable crackle, the rapid-fire popping, the warm, buttery scent curling through the air. A snack so light, so innocent. It fills movie theaters, stadiums, and homes. It sits in crinkling bags on store shelves, waiting for eager hands to tear them open. It is a treat so common, so loved, that you've never stopped to ask, where does it come from? Not the answer you're thinking of. Not the simple one. Not cornfields and factories. That's what they tell you. That's what they want you to believe. No, popcorn has a far stranger, far darker origin. A process that is violent, unnatural, and, if you truly understand it, terrifying. This is not just a snack. It is a transformation unlike any other. And to understand it, we must go back. Back to the fields where it all begins. Kernels that shouldn't exist. Not all corn can become popcorn. That's the first mistake most people make. Those bright yellow cobs you see stacked in supermarkets, the kind you boil and eat with butter. They will never pop. They are too soft. Too weak. But deep in the farmlands, hidden among millions of acres of crops, there is a different kind of corn. A corn with something unnatural locked inside. Scientists call it Z. maize averta, a name that means nothing to the average person, but one that holds the key to popcorn's violent, unpredictable nature. Each kernel is different from the others. Harder. Denser. The outer shell, known as the pericarp, is unlike anything else in the plant kingdom. A natural prison, trapping something deep within. At first glance, it looks harmless. Just a seed, waiting for its time to grow. But the truth is, these kernels were never meant to grow. Their destiny is far more chaotic. They were built to explode. Harvest, the first culling. Once the corn reaches maturity, the process begins. Giant machines, roaring and relentless, sweep across the fields, stripping stalks bare. Thousands, no, millions, of kernels are ripped from their cobs, their fate sealed before they even know what's happening. But not all will make it. Because popcorn demands perfection. Too much moisture. Rejected. Too soft. Discarded. Cracked shells. Destroyed. You see, for a kernel to fulfill its explosive destiny, it must be flawless. Its outer shell unbroken, its moisture locked at precisely 14%. No more. No less. And so, the first culling takes place. A silent, mechanical judgment, sorting the weak from the strong. Only the best kernels will continue. The rest, vanish. But where do they go? No one ever asks. The journey to the factory. The chosen ones are loaded onto massive trucks, millions of them packed together, rolling toward their next destination. Factories. Gigantic, humming monoliths where the transformation truly begins. Inside, conveyor belts stretch like veins, pumping endless streams of kernels deeper and deeper into the heart of the machine. The air is thick with the scent of corn and something else, something chemical, something artificial. This is where the process turns strange. Because raw popcorn isn't enough. It needs to be altered. Conditioned. Trained to pop at just the right moment. And so, the factory begins its work. Conditioning, preparing for the pop. Before a single kernel meets the heat, it must be prepared. First, it is dried. Not naturally, no, that would take too long. Instead, it is blasted with hot air, forcing just the right amount of moisture to evaporate. If the moisture is wrong, the kernel won't pop, it will burn. Then, the polishing. You didn't know this, did you? That every piece of popcorn you've ever eaten has been polished before it was even popped. Machines rub the kernels against each other, scraping away microscopic imperfections. Making sure their shells are smooth, sealed tight, ready for the pressure that will soon build inside them. Then comes the sorting. Again. Even now, more kernels are rejected. Too light. Gone. Too heavy. Destroyed. The factory only wants the ones that will perform perfectly. Because when the time comes, and the heat rises, there is no room for failure. The moment of truth, the heat rises. This is where the real horror begins. The kernels are funneled into massive chambers, metal drums that glow with heat. And then, the fire starts. Temperatures soar past 356 degrees Fahrenheit. Higher. The heat sears through the air, warping everything around it. Inside each kernel, something stirs. The moisture trapped deep within begins to boil. It has nowhere to go. The shell is too strong, too thick. Pressure builds. More. More. Imagine it. Being trapped inside a tiny prison, the heat rising, your insides expanding, the walls of your world squeezing tighter and tighter until pop. An explosion. Instantaneous. The kernel doesn't just break open. It turns inside out. Its very structure is destroyed, mutated, transformed into something entirely new. But not all kernels make it. Some resist too long. They burn from the inside out, turning black, shriveling into charred corpses. Others pop too soon, their bodies weak and misshapen, rejected immediately by the machines. Only the strongest, the fluffiest, the perfect pieces will move on. The rest disappear. The final touch, a chemical secret. You think the horror ends here. That the popcorn is now safe, now ready. But you are wrong. Because now, the factory must give the popcorn its final, irresistible touch. That buttery flavor. The one you love so much. It is not butter. It never was. Instead, the popcorn is bathed in a chemical cocktail, flavor compounds designed to mimic butter, but created in labs, engineered for addiction. One of the most infamous ingredients. Diacetyl. A compound so powerful, so potent, that workers in popcorn factories have developed a condition named after it, popcorn lung. A disease that scars the lungs, making it impossible to breathe. And yet, you eat it. You breathe it in, every time you open a bag, every time that artificial scent curls into your nose. And you love it. Because they made sure you would. The illusion of freshness ****. Popcorn never comes to you the way it leaves the factory. It arrives in a state that is carefully manipulated. Because here's a question you probably haven't asked. If popcorn is popped inside a factory, sometimes weeks or even months before you eat it, how does it still taste fresh? The answer is simple. It doesn't. Factories have a secret. A chemical trick to make you believe it's fresh. Once the popcorn is popped, it immediately begins to die. Its crispness starts to fade. It loses moisture too quickly, turning stale. If left alone, it would become something you wouldn't dare eat. But that would be bad for business. So they stop it. They coat it. Every kernel is bathed in a microscopic layer of oil and preservatives. You don't see it. You don't feel it. But it's there. Sealing in just the right amount of moisture, freezing the popcorn in time, making sure that when you finally tear open that bag, weeks later, it still crunches, still melts in your mouth, still tastes exactly the way they want it to. But it's an illusion. By the time you eat it, that popcorn has already been dead for a long, long time. The next time you hear that first pop. The next time you breathe in that rich, buttery scent, feel that warm, golden kernel melt on your tongue. Ask yourself. Are you really just eating a snack? Or are you taking part in something much bigger? Something older? Something violent, deceptive, and entirely out of your control? Maybe you'll shrug it off. Maybe you'll push these thoughts aside, convince yourself it's just popcorn. Just a harmless treat. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what they want you to think. Because popcorn always comes back. It never goes away. It's always waiting. Waiting for the heat. Waiting for the pressure. Waiting to explode. And whether you realize it or not, it's already inside you. If you found this video disturbing, unsettling, or just plain fascinating, don't forget to like the video. It lets us know you want more deep dives into the dark side of the everyday. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications, because trust me, there's so much more lurking beneath the surface. Until next time, stay curious. And be careful what you eat.